Super Bowl 57 is set. It's a battle of one seeds featuring the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Glendale, Arizona, Sunday, February 12th, alongside John Annett from the UFC, stepping out to talk a little football with your boy. It's Joe Fortenbaugh. A lot to get to today. I don't know if you've heard, John, but Super Bowl 57 is going to feature a matchup between two brothers in Travis and Jason Kelce. I mean, I don't know if you've been aware of that storyline.
You know, thank you for putting that on my radar and making me aware of said storyline. I am sort of from the Christopher Mad Dog Russo school of thought on this. Like, this is going to be a long couple weeks ingesting all of the Kelce brothers, but it is what it is. I think the matchup has some points of fascination for me, chief among them, the fat genius Andy Reid going up against his former team. So a lot to get into. I will be watching the first half of the game in an airport lounge in Sydney, Australia. And then I will be actually on an airplane for the second half of Super Bowl 57. So,
are they going to be showing it?
So it really comes down to the live television gods, however high up in the air we are. But yes, the Super Bowl will be on the airplane. It's just a question of how good the signal is when I need it to be popping.
And this, of course, is because of UFC 284. It's going to be in Perth, Australia. You'll be over there. That's actually the day before this, Saturday, February 11th, 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. John and I are breaking that down on oddshark.com as well, so make sure you check out everything for that. Back to the NFL, when it comes to the point spread here, let's just start with that. Almost every shop here in Vegas opened this game a pick'em and then was quickly bet Philadelphia to -2. On top of that, Circus Sports, which is one of the sharper books in town, they came out and took a position. They had Kansas City as a 2.5-point favorite. They moved it all the way to -2 in favor of Philadelphia as well, but they very clearly were letting everybody know a sharp sports book really like Kansas City here. So what do you make of the move? What do you make of the side?
So I think if Patrick Mahomes were to be healthier, and I think overall in totality, if the Chiefs were healthier, they probably would be the betting favorite. And I think for me to sit here with you and say that I'm going to wait to sort of live bet the game sounds like a cop-out. But unlike the conviction I had for the championship games, and by the way, big whiff on San Francisco for me, which was my biggest wager, but I don't have that conviction for the Super Bowl. I really can outline scenarios for both teams winning this game. So yes, a little bit sort of enthralled by a plus number next to Patrick Mahomes, because I think when I go head coach, quarterback, kicker, as is often the beginning of my handicap, I like Kansas City. But man, Philadelphia to me has been the best team in football consistently all season long and just not in a great rush to fade them, at least right now. So I probably will wait to bet the game live.
Head coach, quarterback, kicker.
Yes.
Take me through that.
Well, Harrison Butker, right? I mean, I know that kick in the AFC Championship game wouldn't have been true from 60 necessarily, but did you see the ice water in his damn veins when he stepped up to put his foot through that goddamn football? I mean, ain't no doubter. Like, he wants that pressure, right? And on the other side, the Cincinnati kicker, Money Mac or whatever he calls himself, right? Like, I didn't feel that convicted in him. So that happened to be part of my handicap. Now, Jake Elliott has been terrific. I went through his game log this morning, right? But Harrison Butker, he is not when it comes to ice water in his veins. And I certainly think the head coach battle is pretty even. Pendulum for me, albeit slightly to Patrick Mahomes over Jalen Hurts. So head coach, quarterback, kicker, give me Kansas City.
So story on Butker. This is like 2 years ago. I had one of the squarest 6-point teasers imaginable. It's like week 2, week 3 in the NFL. It was the game where Tyrod Taylor had his ribs punctured by the San Diego doctor, I guess LA doctor at that time. So Herbert gets his first start and he's playing the Chiefs. I've got the Chiefs in an ultra square teaser with like Baltimore. The first half had covered. Butker, if you remember, goes out to win this game. All right. They're only going to cover the teaser number. They're not going to cover the spread. He converts from 55, but there was a timeout. Then he converts again from 55. There was another timeout. Then he drills it a third time in a row. I mean, outside of Justin Tucker, no one else is doing that.
I remember it well, and I'm glad that you highlighted it. Yeah, that's part of my handicap, and I don't think it is for a lot of people. And, I also do believe that Jalen Hurts, and we're going to get into some of the propositions, but I think he's going to have to throw the ball more, and that might actually work out for Philadelphia. He hasn't really had to throw the ball 24, 25 times in these blowout situations over the last few weeks. But I think if he throws the ball, it might stand to reason that they do pretty well. But I think he's going to have to throw the ball maybe 30 times if Philly's going to win.
Difficult for anyone to listen to me on the side as an Eagles fan, because if I come out and tell you the Eagles, everyone's going to say I'm a honk. On the other side, I kind of want to have a little bit on Kansas City, the old emotional hedge, so I can walk away with something. I did that a few years ago.
How do you not do the emotional hedge? How do you not buy this Super Bowl, Joe?
All right, exactly. So I'm wrestling with all that. I'll say to this point on Hurts, lost in the shuffle of what happened in the NFC Championship game is that he did not look good. He did not play well. He could run the ball, but his throwing, his accuracy was off. Yards per attempt under 5, no touchdowns, no picks. He did what he did in the Chicago game when he got hurt. He was just chucking it down the sideline, hoping one of his receivers could go make a play because of the pressure and because he wasn't confident going over the middle. Now, the good news for him, that's the toughest defensive challenge he's going to face. The bad news, though, he didn't look good in that spot. And Kansas City's defense has gotten better throughout the course of the year. So that kind of naturally provides a segue for us to talk about the total. Opens around 50.5, drops down to 49. This is interesting to note because the early money for a Super Bowl is going to be coming from the pros, the wise guys who want to get involved on the early numbers. But everybody knows the public is going to bet this game heavily. The public loves overs. So to jump on an under early sort of fascinated me. Do you see it as a lower scoring game?
So if you go into my betting account, you will not see any overplays anywhere. Ever.
Really?
Ever. In any sport. None. I don't play totals, right? And I don't like when people call them over-unders. They're totals, folks, right? You go under, you can go under, you can go over, but it's actually a total. I don't play overs, right? I understand that Vegas was built on people playing overs, right? So this has been an NFL season that at times has been defined by unders. Both championship games went under. I remember handicapping 1 week, and I think, 20 teams were 19 points or under, right? So I am an under player if I get away from the actual sides, always, right? But that being said, they're never fun to root for. So I do have a ticket on the under. I got it at 50, straight on 50, and it's 49.5 right now that I'm staring at. But yes, I'll be on the under. I'll also probably have a first half under ticket as well. And never haven't played an over, I think, since I was like 31 years old. So
I can't blame you in this spot. Philadelphia's going to want to run. If you run, you're effective in multiple ways. You protect Hurts, you keep the ball, you keep it away from Mahomes, you keep your defense rested. It's kind of everything they want to do. Kansas City's going to have to be very disciplined on the line. But interesting point, it's got to be 49.5 or higher. 49 is a key number when it comes to totals, so that hook matters quite a bit. Lots of offensive players dinged up for Kansas City. We're taping this, in advance of the Super Bowl. This isn't the day before, so we don't know about the status. Kelsey's battling the back injury, Mahomes with the ankle, Juju Smith-Schuster with the knee, Mecole Hardman, who's been out for a while, re-aggravated the pelvis injury. On and on it goes. If you're looking for props right now, it's probably difficult to isolate some Kansas City guys, but are there any player props that jumped off the board as you started to do your research?
So I like Jalen Hurts over 21.5 completions. And I do believe that Philadelphia as a whole offensively is going to rise to the occasion, right? There have been sort of weird components to their past 2 games. And I do believe it stands to reason that Philadelphia puts its best effort to date on paper in the biggest game of the year. So I like over 21.5 completions from Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. I like over 7.5 points for my guy, Harrison Butker. We're going to go back to the well there. I think he's going to bang every opportunity. Every opportunity
all
he
the
gets,
kicker
he's going
props.
to. Yeah, I mean every opportunity he gets, I think he's going to hit. I'll have a tails ticket for sure. Plus 1,400 on a punt or kickoff return for a touchdown. I think these Super Bowls oftentimes can lead to some weird circumstances there. Travis Kelce anytime touchdown minus 115. But I'm going to be riding Isaiah Pacheco. Do they call him Pacheco? I mean, in MMA, we call her Larissa Pacheco. So
I've heard Pacheco, but you've always been so gracious with my pronunciations of UFC names that if you are even slightly off, we're going to defer to you here. We're not going to defer to his actual pronunciation. We defer to what you think.
Doing right by that number 10 in Kansas City. This Pacheco, though, anytime touchdown plus 120, 35-1 to win the Super Bowl MVP. I understand that's a long shot. But whatever.
Philadelphia's defense has struggled against the run. That's been the Achilles heel. If there's an Achilles heel, it's the run defense.
And I do believe they can get him involved out of the backfield as well. So I'll be looking at over propositions for him. He's also a little bit banged up, has the extra week. But I'm excited to dive in. I'm obviously going to be on an airplane. I'm going to be up in the middle too, but I'm going to have a lot of prop tickets before I go wheels up.
First thing that jumped out to me, Eagles running back Kenneth Gainwell. Receptions, receiving yards, playing both those over. Everyone thinks Miles Sanders when they think about the Eagles backfield. He's their running back, as in running back. He doesn't catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. You can generally play his unders. But the most important thing here is the way Kansas City defends opposing running backs. Those dudes have put up big numbers against them all year. Most targets in the NFL surrendered to opposing running backs. I think it's second most receptions and fourth most receiving yards. So Jalen Hurts in a Super Bowl, everybody's a little bit nervous. Check it down. Get the ball into his hands. It's not going to be sitting at 6.5 and 55.5 yards. You're probably looking at 2.5, something along those lines, maybe 18 yards. And I think Gainwell is going to play a factor in that game. That's kind of on the player prop side. Was there anything that jumped out game-wise? I was going to throw one at you.
What do you got?
It's 16-1 that a player breaks the receiving yards record in this game. Jerry Rice, 215 yards receiving, Super Bowl record. Most passing yards, like smashing all these records. The Chiefs have struggled against opposing number ones this year. Now, they did a really good job against Jamar Chase, but 16-1, and you mentioned it earlier, you want some moonshots here. It's the Super Bowl. If you're not playing moonshots, what's the point?
That's an interesting one, right? Because I do think in Philadelphia, you actually have two guys who have 200-yard capability in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. On the other side, I'm not so sure you have a guy. But yeah, no, I mean, I heard you all on the national airwaves and talking about that Jamar Chase over, and we hammered that, and we hammered the T. Higgins. Well, no, I mean, we're riding Fortin to the grave, buddy. I mean, you tell us to go to the window, we go. But I do think when it comes to this game, sometimes for me, I'll resist the temptation to get super involved early so that I can actually enjoy the game. But if I was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you can be sure that I would be teasing the Chiefs up, right, to have some sort of ticket on them, and I would be playing Kansas City on both the money line and +2 or whatever it is. We're trying to purchase a second championship here in recent NFL history for the Philadelphia Eagles. You need this one, Joe.
Yes, sir, we are. We would very much like to get there. And you're right. When you're talking about teasers, that's exactly what you want to do. You got a team sitting 2, you move it up to 8. You're through the key numbers of 3, 6, 7. You obviously know what you're doing, not your first rodeo. You get involved with like Super Bowl squares or anything like that. I can tell you, you've probably never met anyone who's never hit on Super Bowl squares like the guy you're talking to right now. 0 for 500, 600, literally have never even caught a slice of a Super Bowl square. And yet I keep coming back for more.
Why do you keep coming back? So I had that similar futility. Yeah, I guess so, right? I'm always, I mean, I don't even want to tell you what I did at Publix Supermarket yesterday in South Florida with that little Florida lottery machine. Some of us got real issues, you know? What an idiot. You know, and the whole time I'm thinking that I'm going to win $25 million. And I'm thinking, like, what am I going to tell my wife? Well, we're going to honor the UFC contract, and then we're going to, ride off into the sunset.
We're done. We can move to Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And never come back. But yeah, I mean, I will have an absurd amount of tickets overall on this football game, and coin toss, you can be sure. But I'm going to try to be a little bit disciplined, at least in the lead up, which has not always been my history.
All right, so give me a Gatorade color here. Orange is your favorite at +350. I don't know why orange isn't consumed by many. I mean, you're always going lemon lime, which is the yellow green, and blue also 4-1. Red and pink +450. Clear, meaning clear Gatorade, I guess, or water 5-1. Purple +750. None 10-1. Like, no, none. Someone's got to dump something here.
Right.
What's your color of choice?
So am I even allowed to admit on these airwaves that like my kids sometimes drink Gatorade, right? I don't know if in 2023 you can admit to people that, right? No.
Yeah.
So one of my daughters,
Gatorade.
Well, it's amazing. You have 2 daughters. One of them's like, oh gosh, so much sugar, you know, and the other one's like, can you get an IV of Gatorade and put it into my vein and just shoot me with that? You know, she like rolls out of bed, wants Gatorade. It's like, honey, water will actually wake you up. I'm going blue because I'm almost 45 years of age and all the kids seem to be drinking the blue Gatorade. So you know what? I'm going to go with the blue Gatorade.
I try to time this every year. For anyone who likes doing this, if you really want to try to gain an edge, and I'm not saying this happens every year, but it's happened a lot, between the morning of the Super Bowl and probably about 3 to 4 hours before kickoff, there will come a moment where the odds will suddenly shift. Like the word will get out as to what color the teams are using. Now, you still got to handicap the winning team, but they could end up with the same thing, or you could at least have an idea that, hey, if Philadelphia is going with this, it's a 50-50 proposition that they win the game now, and we've eliminated some of the colors from the equation. So that's just one thing. If I was to pick, I'm a lemon lime guy. I go lemon lime for fun, but that's the move. If you want to, now you got to be a degenerate to spend your whole Sunday sitting there refreshing the odds on Gatorade flavors, but you might be able to find a window for yourself if it presents it. Chris Stapleton, over under 122 seconds for the national anthem. You ever get involved in these?
Well, yeah, speaking of trying to gain an edge, now on the UFC side, we don't do a national anthem. I love when we go to Brazil and they actually will play a national anthem, but obviously insiders have been tracking this for years, and you know more about that than I do. But yeah, generally speaking, I feel like there are a lot of egoists in the world, and I would tend to go over, but I know those don't always come in. They want as many minutes and seconds in the limelight as humanly possible.
So you won't play overs when it comes to totals,
right.
But when it comes to a national anthem.
Yeah, political entertainment props, those are different. I consider this one of those.
So this used to be one of the all-time best bets because the word would get out during the rehearsals. And I used to be on this text thread. So, you know, people, if you're in the gambling industry, the word would make itself around. You could find a way to get down. If you had enough outs, you could make a decent winning off this. And then a few years ago, some idiot stands outside the stadium in Tampa during the rehearsal and films himself timing it. And then everyone's kind of wise to it now. So they've eliminated that. So thanks a lot, first off, to whoever thought that was going to be funny.
Right.
Second of all, quick anecdote. So the year Philadelphia plays New England, Philly's my team. This is the biggest game of my life. My family's in town because my oldest was turning 1-year-old that weekend. So both families are in town. Everyone's together for the game. My in-laws are Bills Mafia, so they want to see Brady go down. I end up getting tipped off to the anthem. Pink was singing that year, and she was a little under the weather, from what I understand, and the under was the wager. And everyone tipped me off. My kid's first birthday party had happened, and then I quietly disappeared, working every angle imaginable to get down as much as humanly possible on this under. So the only person who knows is my younger brother. She starts singing, and I start the timer, and this is no lie. We're about 40 seconds in, and my forearms were swollen to almost twice the size. Whatever I had chemically done to myself based on how much I had wagered, because at the time it was the biggest bet of my life. My forearms were swollen. I'm like pouring sweat. My brother's like 6 feet away from me. I remember him looking at me just going, because we don't want anyone to know what's happening. But I was like, I don't know. Like something was physically wrong. Pink ends up bringing it home. God bless her. She nails it right on the audition time of about 1:53. I look at him. I'm like, holy shit, we just cashed. And then my poor mom, who all she's ever wanted is to win a Super Bowl, to see one. She looks at me. She goes, okay, here we go. I hope we can win it. And I'm thinking to myself, who gives a shit about this game? Who gives a shit? I don't care what happens. Right. We just cashed the biggest bet in history.
Isn't that amazing, right? The highs and lows. They say you actually get to a point as a sports bettor where I'm not there yet, right? Losses almost feel better than the wins because you get to a point where you're like, oh yeah, of course. Like, of course I lost that bet, you know? Yep. Like I actually called my brother last week and I said, am I the most snake bit gambler of all time? Right? Because I guarantee you over the last 6 weeks, I've hit more bets than I've lost, but every time I up the ante or I do a, 5-time wager, I lose all my big bets all the time. But that's an incredible story. So you're like 7-3 down 2 units. Exactly. Yeah. Every time I try to place a big bet, I just get absolutely destroyed. So the last huge bet was Lakers live plus 3.5 against the Celtics. They lose by 4 in overtime.
Oh, on Saturday when you had that game wrapped.
So yeah, that was the last difficult one, but it is what it is. It comes with the territory. Yep.
It does. Halftime show, anything with Rihanna. Do you ever get involved with this? I tend to stay away. Like I use halftime as a regroup process. I got to get second half wagers. Everyone loves the show. No disrespect to the performers, but it's like the last thing on my radar.
So I went to Super Bowl 53. I was fortunate enough as a Patriots fan to see that final Brady-Belichick Super Bowl win. I couldn't even tell you prior to my pre-show prep today who the halftime show was. It was Maroon 5. I didn't see a minute of it. So no, that is so firmly off of my radar. Now, coin toss, national anthem, things like that, absolutely on my radar. But halftime show, I couldn't even tell you who's performing.
Because we've already had enough gambling up until that point, and then we're resetting for the second half. The coin toss you have to bet because you haven't been able to really bet anything up to that point. So as soon as the options open up, for kickoff, touchback, first down, first punt, you got to have all that stuff early. Anything on the MVP? Naturally, Hurts is your favorite at a price of plus 110. Eagles quarterback. Quarterbacks have won this award 55% of the time. Patrick Mahomes plus 130, and then you have AJ Brown Travis Kelce at 10-1. Do you tend to go against the quarterback? Do you play any moonshots here?
Well, Tom Brady took a lot of these awards from guys like Ty Law and Adam Vinatieri, right? And that always sticks with me when I am at the window, so to speak, when it comes to betting MVP. But, Kelce, if you can get him 11 or 12-1, I think has some value. Sometimes I think they go Lifetime Achievement Award for a guy like Kelce. And if he does have 7 or 8 catches, 100 yards, catches a couple touchdowns, maybe that swings the pendulum from Mahomes to him. And again, I'll say, Pacheco's flair for the dramatic is such that 35-1 to me, if he can make a couple of big plays and score twice, I think there's some value there, just half a unit or so.
I always like to get at least one defender in the mix. Hassan Reddick from the Eagles is 35-1. Final thing before we go, favorite Super Bowl memory. And as a Patriots fan, I'd imagine you have 1 or 2.
I do. And last year I was on an Aaron Donald ticket to win the Super Bowl MVP. And I said,
you got screwed on that one.
Now, obviously, I didn't have this amazing price, but it's like, if the dude does what he does and I can't get an MVP ticket home for defensive player, then what are you going to do? All right. So Super Bowl moment. So I got to tell you, man, and obviously as a Patriots fan, I grew up, they were the laughingstock of the NFL, right? But if you have not been to see your team in a Super Bowl, if your team gets there, you just got to go. It's the most special thing in the world. And so I can sit here and tell you that when Steven Gostkowski, this is going to sound crazy, made that 41-yard field goal with 1:12 to go to make that game 13-3, it was the most joyful moment of my life, not just because of how much money I spent on a Super Bowl ticket I had a huge bet on the Rams, right? But that was a 3-3 Super Bowl. That was a 3-3 Super Bowl with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So even though everybody at home thought it was the worst Super Bowl, lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time, as a fan of a team in the building, 3-3, 7 minutes to go, you finally get up 13-3, you wait to exhale. So a lot of different ones. Obviously, Vinatieri, some moments early on. I have some of them immortalized in my office here, but I have to say being in the building for that Super Bowl win takes the cake for me. How about you?
One of the best anecdotes from that game you're describing, and I don't remember where I heard this, but the game's 3-3, and Belichick and Brady are on the sideline before the only touchdown drive of the game. And they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And Belichick takes the binder, like the game plan for the week, and he just looks at it. And this is the guy who created it, and he goes, "This is shit." And he throws it on the ground. And he talks to Tom, and they say, "We got to get back to running the football. We got to start running the football. Let's just take it down the field and play smash mouth." And that was the drive that led to the TD, which pretty much was the biggest drive of the game. But that anecdote is immortalized in so many of these like leadership books and seminars, because you got to be able to know when you're wrong. And like, that's Belichick there on the fly, just being like, "We put 2 weeks into this. This is shit. We got to go to something else." And ultimately that's the pivot that wins. So I love that Super Bowl for that reason. Mine, and this is pretty up because you're a Patriots fan, but it would be Brandon Graham strip sacking Tom Brady, because that was the moment. You're up 5, just over 2 minutes to go. Every Eagle fan is like, we know what this guy's going to do. He's going to go right down the field for a TD, and he's going to slash us like he did in that Super Bowl against in Jacksonville against McNabb. And Graham strips him, and you're sitting there, and everyone in the room is looking at each other just saying, I think the Eagles are actually going to win this now, which, as great as they had played up until that point against New England, it's never good until it's over. Like with Brady, it's never good until it's over. But that, I'd imagine you being on the other end of that, probably have a different reaction.
Yes, but now at this stage of my life, and having gone to Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, so many of my college buddies are Eagles fans. I'm rooting for Philadelphia this weekend. I really am. And, they're not for nothing. Their owners are Boston guys, right? And so much of their success is rooted in great ownership. A lot of the Boston teams that I am fortunate to root for really success because their owners care as much as you and I do. They're fans at their core. Yes. And whether it's the Eagles' ability to pivot off of Doug Peterson or Carson Wentz or anything else, right? Ownership cares about one thing, and that's why they're successful. So I'm rooting for your Birds this weekend, buddy. I don't know where my ticket's going to be, but I'm rooting for your Birds.
You're a good man, John Anik, a good man indeed. For everyone out there, he's going to be on the call, UFC 284, February 11th in Perth, Australia. You can check that out on ESPN+. Main card starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. This was a lot of fun talking football with you. Travel safe. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, my man. Always a pleasure.
To everyone out there at Art Shark, thank you so much for watching us. A lot of content that's going to be coming up, Super Bowl and UFC related. So stick with oddshark.com. We got you covered with everything you need to know.